You ever seen a grown man salute in dead silence while a screaming woman melts down beside him? Because that's exactly what happened in front of my house at 8:46 a.m. on a dusty Wednesday morning. Karen, floral blouse, clipboard clutched like it held national secrets, was halfway through her third 911 call. Red-faced, sweating through her foundation, she was yelling something about code violations, illegal structures, and a woman with a hostile attitude. Then the cop showed up. Black boots on gravel, aviators, calm. He looked at me, looked past me, and started walking up to my wife, who stood perfectly still on the porch, arms at her sides, no expression. Karen lit up like a firework. There, that's her. She assaulted the HOA president. That's her. The officer moved toward Natalie, hand drifting toward his cuffs. I opened my mouth to speak, but Natalie raised a single finger, just enough to pull back the edge of her jacket. I swear to you, it was like flipping a switch. The cop froze, blinked, then straightened up so fast he almost lost his hat. He saluted. "Yes, General." Karen went silent. Now, before we get too far down the road, let me back up and tell you how we got here, because I promise you, it didn't start with salutes and secrets. It started with peppers. We bought that place a year ago. Quiet spot near the edge of town, with a wraparound porch and a good acre and a half out back. Natalie had retired, so I thought, and wanted to start a little homestead. Chickens, tomatoes, the whole dream. Thing is, the dream ended at the fence line. That's where Karen lived. You know the type. Permanent scowl, one of those dogs that never stops barking and somehow always manages to poop exactly on your gravel. We weren't even fully unpacked when she showed up with a pamphlet from the homeowner association. Didn't matter that we never signed anything. Didn't matter that our deed said we weren't part of it. Karen had a special clause. She said the previous owner had agreed to the HOA by handshake, and that made us fair game. We laughed, she didn't. The next week, we got a warning letter taped to our mailbox. Then came the fines. At first, it was $250 for unauthorized fencing, then $500 for improper shed materials. Before I could blink, it was over $12,000. And Natalie, she didn't flinch. Not once. I asked her what we were going to do about it, and she just said, "It's not time yet." Not time for what? That part she never told me. You ever live with someone who's keeping something huge bottled up, but does it so well you start to question your own gut? That was Natalie, calm eyes, measured words, and a laptop that always disappeared the second I walked into the room. Then one morning, I found her outside in her boots, staring at the sky like she was waiting for something. "Is storm coming?" I asked. She said, "No, that's just pressure. It has to build before it breaks." I thought she meant the weather. Turns out she was talking about Karen. By month 6, the homeowner association had officially declared us in violation of over 20 codes. They claimed our house's elevation didn't match neighborhood standards. Our chicken coop was industrial. Our paint color, wait for it, wasn't on the approved list. Then we got the big one. Certified letter, HOA seal, penalty total, $397,800. I remember holding that paper and laughing, like a full-body broken brain kind of laugh. Natalie didn't even read it. She folded it once, tucked it in a drawer, and poured herself a glass of lemonade. And when I asked her, again, what we were going to do, she looked at me and said, "I'll handle it." That's when I knew something was off. Not wrong, just off. Because see, Natalie used to be a logistics officer in the Army, organized, disciplined, sharp. But this was different. This was like watching a fuse burn and pretending you didn't smell the smoke. Then came the knock at the door. Police, HOA representative, Karen. They were here to issue a formal citation for willful obstruction of compliance. But Natalie had other plans. What happened next? Let's just say it started with a salute and ended with Karen backing away like she'd seen a ghost. And that's when the real story began. Let me tell you something about a woman like Karen. She doesn't lose quietly, she escalates. The day after the salute, she came back with reinforcements. Not police this time, contractors. 3 guys in neon vests, holding clipboards and measuring tape like they were about to rebuild the Pentagon. One of them knocked on my door and said they were there for a code compliance assessment. I said, You're not stepping foot on my land without a warrant." Karen popped out from behind the SUV like a cartoon villain. "They don't need one. This property falls under the homeowner association's jurisdiction." I laughed, not a chuckle. The kind of laugh that comes from 6 months of pressure finally finding a crack. "You don't run this land," I told her, "and you sure as hell don't get to dictate who walks on it." The lead contractor looked back and forth between us, mumbled something about getting clarification, and the whole crew left 5 minutes later. That's when things got quiet, too quiet. You know that kind of silence? Not peaceful, the kind that hums like a loaded spring. Natalie didn't say much that week. She spent more time inside, her phone barely leaving her hand. But it wasn't TikTok or Sudoku. I caught glimpses of satellite maps, names I didn't recognize, encrypted-looking apps that vanished the second I blinked. And then one night, midnight, maybe later, I woke up to the sound of voices. Not in the house, on the porch. I crept to the front window and saw Natalie in her robe, sitting with a man I didn't recognize. Military posture, quiet voice. They weren't arguing, they were briefing. That's when I stopped thinking of this as a neighbor dispute. Whatever Natalie was involved in, it ran deeper than Karen, deeper than zoning laws. There was an entire engine turning behind her calm demeanor, and I'd been too busy getting angry about chicken coop violations to notice. The next morning, she made pancakes, like nothing happened. "You okay?" I asked. She smiled. "We're almost there." Now, I'm not a paranoid guy. I fix fences, watch baseball, drink my coffee black. But even I knew something was brewing. You don't get $400,000 in HOA fines and a midnight visitor in the same week without a bigger storm rolling in. And that storm hit when we received the lien notice. Stamped, certified, signed by someone from the county clerk's office. It said our property was now legally encumbered, whatever the hell that meant, and we had 30 days to pay the full amount or face forfeiture. That's when Natalie finally spoke up. She didn't yell, she didn't panic, she just stood up, poured out her coffee and said, "They made it official. Good, now it's my turn." I didn't follow at first. I asked what she meant and she just said, "I've been gathering proof, building a map. Karen's not just annoying, she's part of something." Then she opened her laptop and showed me a file. Hundreds of lines, property transfers, HOA documents, all linked to the same 5 names. "This isn't about fences," she said. "It's about flipping properties, illegally, quietly, through intimidation and forged compliance." She pointed to one name, Karen's. And this is the weak link. Now I'm sitting there, looking at all this evidence, trying to wrap my head around how my wife, who I thought was just trying to raise tomatoes, was sitting on a covert investigative operation. Then she looked me dead in the eye and said, "Mike, I need you to play dumb for just a little longer. Let me ask you something. Have you ever realized you're not the main player in your own life, but the cover story in someone else's?" Because that hit me like a freight train. Natalie kissed my forehead and went upstairs. And that night, I sat in the dark kitchen, staring at that file, feeling like the world I knew had been rewritten without me noticing. But the worst part, I still had no idea what she was going to do next. You ever wake up to the sound of your own land being taken from you? Because that's exactly what happened the next morning. I opened the front door and found yellow boundary flags staked across half the yard, my driveway, my coop, even the side porch. They'd marked it all off like it was a construction zone. Karen stood on the edge of the gravel, arms folded, sunglasses on, like she was overseeing a military op. "You're trespassing," I said. She smiled. "No, Mr. Granger, you're trespassing. The homeowner association has assumed custodial oversight pending forfeiture." That phrase burned through me like acid. I called Natalie, no answer. Tried her twice, nothing. I walked back inside, heart pounding like a drum. That's when I noticed her go bag was gone. The black duffel she always kept by the coat rack. It wasn't there. I found a note in the drawer. "Don't interfere. You're safer as the bystander. Trust me." That's when the world tilted. Karen brought in a private security firm the next day. Not police, private. Guys in tactical polos with earpieces, posted up like we were barricaded fugitives. One of them stood at the fence line, just staring into the house for hours. Have you ever felt watched in your own kitchen? They claimed it was to maintain order during the lien enforcement process. I asked if they had legal right to be there. One of them shrugged and said, "Talk to your homeowner association." Natalie was gone. My phone calls went unanswered. No texts, no emails. It was like she vanished into thin air and took half my sanity with her. Then it got worse. An official letter showed up, saying the house was now under temporary HOA custody. I wasn't being kicked out yet, but I wasn't allowed to make changes to the property or interfere with pending evaluations. That same day, the coop was dismantled. They actually came in, took it apart, piece by piece. I stood there watching. Couldn't stop it. Karen recorded the whole thing on her phone like she was filming a trophy hunt. I've never felt smaller. You ever been humiliated in your own home? Like your dignity got peeled off, layer by layer, while you stood there clenching your fists, trying not to scream? That night, I sat in the barn, just me and the ghosts. I didn't even turn the light on. I thought about my dad. He used to say, "Sometimes you lose a piece of land. Sometimes you lose a piece of yourself." Well, that week, I was losing both. Then something shifted. I woke up to the sound of an engine idling outside, stepped onto the porch, and there it was, a black SUV. Windows tinted, engine humming low. It didn't belong to anyone in town. I would have known. The back window rolled down just an inch. A man's voice, calm, precise, said, "Tell her the door's open." And then it drove away. Now I had no idea what that meant, but something in my gut told me Natalie wasn't done. Later that day, I checked our old laptop, the one we never used anymore. It was warm. I opened it, desktop empty, but there was one folder on the desktop. No name, just a black icon. Inside were files, maps, names, audio recordings, photos, most of them time-stamped from months ago. Natalie had been gathering intel from inside the system. One photo made my stomach turn. Karen, sitting at a table with 3 men in suits. One of them wore a badge. The other, well, let's just say he wasn't from code enforcement. That's when I knew. This wasn't just a bad neighbor. This was a pipeline, a machine. And Natalie, she was the wrench. So I did what any half-sane man would do. I packed a bag, filled the truck, and waited. I didn't know what for, but I knew it was coming. I just didn't know whose side I'd end up on when it did. Funny thing about standing still in a storm, you start hearing things you never noticed before. Like the whine of a drone overhead, or the way Karen's SUV has a different hum when she's not alone in it, or the soft click of a recorder being shut off. I started listening, watching, keeping notes just like Natalie had. Turns out, Karen held a meeting in her backyard every Thursday night. It wasn't listed as a homeowner association gathering, no minutes posted, just 3 to 5 people, same group, same time, every week. So I set up a trail cam. No one expects a guy with a truck and a worn-out flannel shirt to be tech-savvy, and that's exactly what I was counting on. I didn't get sound, but the photos were enough. One frame caught Karen holding a manila folder. Another showed one of the guests, same badge from the photo Natalie had, handing her what looked like a burner phone. I printed everything. Didn't know what I'd do with it, but it felt like something. Then I made a mistake. I tried to talk to a neighbor, Jerome, guy from 3 doors down. Thought he'd seen some of this too. I showed him one photo, just one. The next morning, there was a violation notice taped to my window. Unlawful surveillance activity in a residential zone. Karen had eyes everywhere. That night, someone let the air out of my truck tires. I didn't even bother calling the cops. What were they going to do, fine me for illegal air levels? Instead, I walked past the lots where 3 other families used to live. Empty now, properties repossessed, homes stripped to studs. One had a foreclosure sign with the HOA logo stamped right on it. I realized this wasn't just happening to me. And maybe, just maybe, that's why Natalie disappeared when she did. Next morning, I found something new in the old mailbox behind our barn, a burner phone. No note, just the phone. It rang that night. I picked up. Natalie's voice. "Mike, you still good?" I couldn't breathe for a second. Then I said, "Where the hell are you?" She ignored the question. "You need to act like you're cracking. Let them think you're breaking. You're being watched 24/7, even inside. Cameras, mics, pressure." I said, "Natalie, this is insane. These people are tearing down our life. She said, exactly, and that's what makes them sloppy. Then she hung up. That call did something to me, flipped a switch. I stopped feeling like a victim and started acting like a problem. I began feeding them bait. Left my laptop open with fake browser tabs, real estate bankruptcy forums, out-of-state listing sites, a half-written letter labeled property surrender draft. I started walking slower, letting them see the slump in my shoulders. Started drinking beer outside at noon, like I'd given up. I even shouted at the fence once, just loud enough for Karen's security cam to pick up. Maybe they're right. Maybe I should just leave this hellhole. 3 days later, a manila envelope appeared on my porch. Inside, a settlement offer. Sign over the property, waive liability, and they'd clear the slate. You ever seen the enemy reveal their cards without knowing it? Because that envelope, that was the tell. It meant they thought I was done. And when your enemy thinks you're done, that's when you strike. But I wasn't ready, not yet, because I still didn't know who was on their side and who wasn't. So I made one more move. I wrote a fake letter to a fake lawyer, asking about voluntary forfeiture. I sealed it, walked it right down to the drop box by the HOA office. And as I walked away, I saw Karen watching me from her window, smiling. And that's when I knew she was planning something for me. I just had to make sure she didn't realize I was planning something for her too. Here's the thing about traps. They only work if the target steps right where you want them. So I built one. It started with a leak, a fake one. I drove into town, sat at the local diner, and let it slip, just loud enough for the right ears, that I was looking to sell fast. Said the bank was breathing down my neck. Said I had calls out to cash buyers. And I made sure to mention I didn't want any of that HOA nonsense holding things up. By noon the next day, I got a text, no name, just, "Heard you're thinking of leaving. I can help." They wanted to meet. I chose a busted-out gas station just outside county lines. One road in, one road out, cameras long dead. That's where I saw him, black pickup, aviators, same guy from Natalie's porch. He introduced himself as Dean, said he was a consultant working with property transitions. I asked him if that was code for cleanup man. He didn't smile. We talked for 10 minutes. He danced around every question like a pro. But I was watching his hands, not his words. He never once touched his coffee. That's when I knew he was wired. So I gave him what he came for. I said, "I'm done. If Natalie wants to die on this hill, that's her business. I just want out." He nodded slowly. "If you sign, you walk. Simple as that." Simple, right? I asked him who gets the property after me. He didn't answer. Instead, he slid a folder across the table. Inside, transfer documents. Quick claim, no lawyer, just me, my pen, and my last shred of dignity. I took it, didn't sign, said I'd think about it. And I left the tracker in the folder. Yeah, Natalie wasn't the only one who prepped for the long game. That night, I followed the signal. Led me to a warehouse out past the storage units near Highway 7. Inside, I watched from the ridge, cars pulling in, low voices, flashlights, and Karen standing dead center, laughing like she'd already won. They weren't just flipping homes, they were laundering assets, using fake code violations to seize land, then moving titles through shell buyers. Natalie had cracked it wide open, and now, with me acting like dead weight, they thought the lid was sealed. But I wasn't there to confront anyone, not yet. I was there to record, every license plate, every face, every damn minute. I drove home shaking. Not from fear, from pressure, the kind you feel when you know the fuse is lit and you're holding the match. Next morning, I cleaned up. Put on my church clothes, shaved, drove into town and met with a buddy from back in the day. Used to work in county records. Told him I had a situation, showed him one of the license plates, just one. His face went pale. "You don't want to mess with this, Mike." That's when I knew I was right where I needed to be. Then I made one final move before the endgame. I printed a fake deed, realistic enough to fool a casual glance. Said the property was donated to a historical conservation fund. No resale allowed, no alterations. Permanent preservation status. I rolled it up, tied it with a red ribbon, and left it on Karen's doorstep. No note, no explanation. just the document. By sunset, she was pacing her driveway like a caged animal. And that night, someone cut the power to my house. I lit a candle, sat on the porch, waited. Because I knew the storm had finally made landfall. And I was done playing defense. You ever sit in the dark and realize the silence isn't empty? It's listening? That night, with the power out and the whole house breathing like a held breath, I knew something was coming. I just didn't know from which direction. I stayed on the porch, didn't move, candle flickering low. My shotgun sat beside me, not raised, not cocked, just there, like punctuation. And around 3 a.m., it happened. A shadow cut across the far edge of the yard. 2 figures, one tall, one shorter. No flashlights, no voices, moving like they'd rehearsed it. They made it to the shed. And that's when the motion sensors I'd wired to my old CB radio lit up the barn with static. I stood, slow, didn't raise my voice, just said, "Wrong address." They froze. One took a step back. The other reached for something, maybe a phone, maybe worse. Before they could try anything, headlights flooded the yard from behind. Black SUV, same one from before. Door opened. Natalie stepped out. You ever seen a ghost walk out of a car like she owned the ground? She didn't say a word, just walked past me, straight to the 2 shadows. Showed something, a badge maybe, they turned and left. Quick, heads down. She finally looked at me. "You kept the porch light on," she said. I wanted to yell, cry, ask where the hell she'd been, but I didn't. I just nodded. "Come inside," I said. She did. In the kitchen, over half-cold coffee, she laid it out. Karen wasn't just flipping homes. She was laundering money through fake trust transfers, cycling properties through shell buyers and offshore accounts. That warehouse I found, it was a transit point, a digital laundromat for dirty money. And Dean, he wasn't just a fixer, he was ex-Intel, government adjacent, retired with too many secrets and no one watching. Natalie had been tracking this for months, gathering intel under the radar. The only thing that blew her cover was me. "They didn't expect you to be curious," she said. "They thought you'd fold." "Almost did," I admitted. She smiled. "Almost is the best kind to know." Then came the part I didn't see coming. She said, "Tomorrow we finish it, but not through them." I asked what she meant. She slid a folder across the table. Inside were printed versions of every document I'd seen on her laptop, plus one more, an invite. Karen was holding a private HOA investor meeting, final phase, closing deal on my property, full annexation. Natalie had somehow gotten her name on the guest list. "Dress up," she said. "We're crashing their ending." That next morning, I shaved again. Wore the same jacket I got married in. Natalie pulled her hair back, no makeup, eyes cold as steel. We drove in silence, not because there was nothing to say, but because we already knew the words didn't matter anymore. The meeting was at a country club on the far side of the county, gated, polished, full of people who never touched dirt unless it came with a golf tee. We walked in together. No one stopped us. Karen saw us. Her smile twitched, but she didn't flinch. Natalie leaned over and whispered, "She thinks she already won." The room was full of quiet power. Bankers, lawyers, men with expensive shoes and names on plaques. Karen stood at the front, laying out the acquisition, talking about development, profit, future investments. Then Natalie stepped forward. Calm, quiet, deadly. She dropped the folder on the podium. "Before you proceed," she said, "you should know the property you're discussing is under federal investigation." Someone laughed. Until Natalie pulled out a second badge, not hers. Karen's face drained of color. "You planted that?" I whispered. Natalie said nothing, because sometimes silence is louder than any scream. And that room, full of men who thought they were untouchable, went dead quiet. You ever watch a queen fall without a single move left on the board? Because that's what happened next. Funny thing about power, when it snaps, it doesn't crack. It folds. Karen didn't scream, didn't protest. She stood there, blinking like someone just turned out the sun. And the room, the investors, the lawyers, the clean-cut men with silver watches, they scattered. No shouting, no accusations, just suits quietly grabbing briefcases and disappearing like rats off a sinking yacht. Natalie turned to me and gave a small nod. That was her way of saying, We're done here. We walked out slow. No rush. We didn't need to run. The avalanche had already started. By the time we got home, 3 things had happened. 1. Karen's SUV was gone. 2. A notice had been posted on the HOA office, closed pending review. 3. A black vehicle sat across the road, engine off, lights out, watching. But this time, I wasn't afraid of being watched. Natalie stayed 3 more nights. She patched up the porch steps, fixed the squeaky hinge on the gate. Didn't say much. I think she knew it was over, and saying it out loud would make it feel smaller. On the 4th morning, I found her note. Same handwriting as before, 2 lines this time. It's done, keep the land clean, and if they come back, burn the folder. No goodbye, no location, no promise. Just purpose. And yeah, I sat there for a long while, just holding the note. The house felt too quiet again, but not empty. See, something changes when you survive a siege. You stop needing noise to feel alive. A week later, the county clerk sent a letter. The lien had been dissolved. Administrative error, they said. No further action required. I laughed so hard I scared the dog. Then I rebuilt the coop by hand. Every nail, every beam. Didn't ask for permits, didn't care. Because the homeowner association, it wasn't coming back. Karen, no one saw her again. Not in town, not on any mailing lists. Her house went up for sale, cash only, no showings. But sometimes, late at night, I swear I see brake lights at the top of the hill. Could be nothing. Or maybe it's just the wind remembering. So, that's the story. If you're still here, thanks for listening. And if you ever get a letter from your homeowner association demanding $400,000, tell them Mike Granger says hi. And maybe, just maybe, don't open the door so quick.